the way to build wealth in this country, and there's no question about it, is to keep your money away from the government. And you're going to follow my general rules of life. Sort of like you don't cook bacon while you're naked. It's that important. Remember, if you have a plan, you have more money for you now, more for retirement, and plenty more for your loved ones. And most of that can be tax-free, so you can enjoy your money.
Americans have an estimated $16 trillion in tax-deferred savings, including IRAs and 401ks. And the IRS is waiting to grab up to 90% of your hard-earned cash. Ed Slott will show you how to protect it. The Wall Street Journal called Ed Slott the best source of IRA advice. And USA Today said it would be tough to find anyone who knows more about IRAs than CPA Slott. Ed Slott is recognized as the leading expert about tax-deferred savings and is on a mission to help you and your family keep all the money you've worked so hard to accumulate in Stay Rich Forever and Ever. Now, here's Ed Slott.
Okay, thank you and welcome everyone. Well, what's more fun than spending time with a CPA talking about taxes? Well, I'll tell you, it's the taxes that will determine how much fun you're really going to have with your life savings, your retirement money. That's what we're talking about today. When I use the term IRA, which I'll be using quite a bit today, I'm using that as an umbrella term. So when I say IRA, that means all your retirement money. So it's your 401k, your 403b, your company pension plan, all of that tax-deferred money. So what is tax-deferred? Well, that's easy. That's kind of like your deal with the devil. And as with any deal with the devil, there's a day of what? Reckoning. And they have a name for that date. It's called your required beginning date. That's the date that our government has decided that they're just sick and tired of waiting for you to drop dead and they want their money back. That was always the case. That's the income tax. This money's also subject to estate taxes. This is highly taxed money. But here's the thing. Who's going to get that money? Do you ever have those dreams? Sitting around thinking, well, I've worked my whole life. Now I want to enjoy it. Who do you envision when you think about those days, spending your money? I'll tell you who you're all thinking about, because I know. Uncle Sam. Well, that's who's going to get your money, because Uncle Sam has a plan and you don't, and the one with the plan wins. That's what we're talking about today on today's program, creating a plan so you can have more money for you today, more money for your retirement, and more money for your loved ones, and more of it tax-free. And anybody can do it, and that's what we're going to show you in this program. But you need a plan, what I call an exit strategy. You put the money in, do you have a plan to get it out? Because it's the way you take it out that will determine how much you keep and how much goes to the government. Most people have no plan. And we have a bad situation in this country. Remember, taxes right now are very low. I know nobody will ever say that, but taxes are very low. This may be the lowest tax rates you'll ever see. But we're hitting a perfect storm of financial disaster that are going to sink a lot of boats. I call it the ship, S-H-I-P. And when the ship hits the fan, taxes are going to go through the roof. What do I mean by the ship? S, Social Security. H, health care. I, income tax. Taxes have to go up. P, pensions. Somebody's got to pay for all of this. Who do you think it's going to be? You and me. I call this new economy we're entering a yo-yo economy. Y-O, Y-O. You're on your own. Businesses are out. They don't have pensions anymore. Look at the headlines. Look at this piece from the cover of the paper. These are not stories in the back of the paper. Traditional pensions are almost gone. Is employer-provided health insurance next? Look at this one. This you may have seen. The first baby boomer came to collect. Here's the first baby boomer. First baby boomer came to collect Social Security. There are 78 million people online behind her. Who's going to pay for this? It's going to come from taxes. Taxes are going to have to be increased. Look at this piece. Federal finances, a mess. This is a story about the top accountant in the country who won't even sign our government's financial statements. He says our government has made a whole lot of promises that in the long run it cannot possibly keep without huge tax increases. So what does that mean? That means Congress is going to have to raise this money. And they know one thing about raising money. They know one thing about taxes, and they learned this from the feudal system. The best people to tax are dead people. They don't vote, they don't complain, and they don't write letters to their congressmen. Which dead people do you think Congress is most interested in? That's right, rich, dead people. They're not interested in poor people. They're horrible customers. They say they like poor people, but they don't really like them. Which rich, dead people do you think our Congress is most interested in? The rich, dead people that have the most money that has not yet been taxed. We're all in the soup. We all did everything right because our tax system is a penalty on savers. That doesn't sound fair. We put money in IRAs and 401ks and company plans. We did everything right, but that money hasn't been taxed yet. Now the government has the advantage of being able to change the rates at the end of the game when we reach our hands in there to collect. That doesn't seem fair. And if you're wondering how high can taxes get, well, I'll give you a little history lesson. It wasn't that many years ago, in the early 80s, the top federal tax bracket was 70%. But even a few years after that, the combined tax on retirement accounts, estate and income tax, was 95%. 55% estate tax and 40% income tax. 95%. And even at that time, can you imagine Congress sitting around saying 95% tax on retirement accounts? We're just leaving people with too much of their own money. And they went and created a third tax on top of the already existing 95%, a 15% excise tax. We used to call it the success tax, the excess accumulations tax. Another 15% on top of the already existing 95%. This went on until about 1995 when one sorry beneficiary inherited a large IRA and got hit with all three taxes, what I call the trifecta of taxation. His combined rate was 103%. In other words, he was a negative beneficiary. They wanted him to kick in. And he said, but I don't even know the guy. And they said, but he's your father. And he went to tax court in one of the biggest taxpayer-friendly landmark rulings of all time. In that case, the judge said to the IRS, no longer can the IRS take more than 100% of what a person has. Thank you very much. It's a nutty system. But we have to take the position, when we do our planning, that there will be taxes, estate taxes, income taxes, because we know the government needs the money. So we have to create a plan, because if you don't create a plan, you get the government plan. That's how the government gets all their money, from people doing nothing. We can create a plan where you can end up with more for you now, more for your retirement, and more for your family, and most of it tax-free, and in some cases, all of it tax-free. I'm going to give you a dramatization of the problem, because first you really have to see how this unfolds. I'm going to use a big number. $10 million IRA. Now you might say, who has $10 million in an IRA? First, you never know. Second, if you can lose $10 million, you can lose whatever you have. And the less you have, the more important it is to protect what you have. So I'm going to do this in slow motion. But you will see the unraveling of the taxes. Let's say you have a $10 million IRA. It's the only asset in the estate. You die. What happens in 9 months? You have estate taxes. Because we're going to assume there's going to be some kind of tax. What else happens in 9 months? That's right, you have a baby. Is it different here? If you think about it, life's like a bell curve. They give you 9 months to get into the world and 9 months to get out. Little tax history there. That's where they got the 9 months on the estate tax. All right, you have a $10 million IRA. It's the only asset in the estate. You die. What happens in 9 months? Let's make the numbers easy. You have to come up with $5 million in estate tax. Where are you going to get it from? That IRA. I said it was the only asset. But you take $5 million out of an IRA, that's $5 million of taxable income on one return in one tax year. So let's see how this plays out in our dramatization. You die, $10 million IRA, your family has to come up with $5 million. They take it out of the IRA. They take $5 million out of the IRA. They're walking it over here to Uncle Sam, the estate tax guy. But what step did I skip? Income tax. I crossed over a street right up the middle here I call Income Tax Avenue, where Uncle Sam Jr., his son, the income tax guy, is standing there, and he says, great, you landed on my space, 40%. 40% of what? Well, you took $5 million out. I get $2 million. So you give him $2 million. You continue on to Uncle Sam Sr., the estate tax guy, and said, look, I was on my way over here. I had all $5 million. I didn't talk to anybody. You know, I'm from New York. I got mugged. Guy grabbed me for $2 million, so I'm short $2 million. Don't worry about that guy. He's my son, Uncle Sam Jr. He does income tax. I do estate tax. We work together. Good. You guys settle it up. No, he gets his and I get mine. You're short $2 million. Better go back and get it in 9 months. No problem. Still a few crumbs left back in this account. You started with $10 million. How much do you have left? 5. What do you need now? 2. You have to pull out $2 million. You pull out $2 million. You're walking it over here to Uncle Sam, the estate tax guy, minding your own business. You hit Income Tax Avenue. There's Uncle Sam Jr., and he says, great, you landed on my space again. Now I have 12 hotels, 40%. 40% of what? I just gave you all that money. $800,000, 40% of the $2 million you took out. So you give him $800,000. You continue on to Uncle Sam Sr., the estate tax guy, said, look, I was on my way over here with the $2 million I was short. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't look at anybody. Bang! Same greedy guy hits me over the head. I'm short $800,000. Well, better go back and get it in 9 months. This goes on and on and on. Actually, I did it in slow motion, but it happens instantaneously. In this book of mine, The Retirement Savings Time Bomb, I actually did the walk on page 152. It didn't even take me the whole page. I stopped when I got down to the last 12 cents, and I felt the point was made. That's what I call the Retirement Savings Time Bomb. You lose it. See, the point is, you have to understand there's a problem. Why would you be interested in a solution? This is why most people don't play in the second half of the game. Why would you be interested in a solution if you didn't think you have a problem? I'm telling you, you have a problem. What advice would I have given that $10 million guy if I was able to consult with him before he became the croquis? That's a legal term. Croquis. I would have told him, you have to have a plan. The IRA is not sacred. The reason most people lose their retirement money is because they just look at it. It comes down to one word. That's the big problem. Admiration. People just like to look and admire their work. For example, I have people that love to show me their IRA statements, and they say, oh, look, I have $1.2 million in my IRA. And I say, that's not your money. You're not keeping any of that. It's just temporarily on your letterhead. Don't you get it? But they love to look at it. I'm telling you, the IRA is not sacred. Either you use it, you leverage it, or you lose it. And this is where we use the 3 biggest benefits in the tax code. And here they are. Number 1, the single biggest benefit in the tax code is the tax exemption for life insurance. Now, just so you know where I'm coming from, I do not sell life insurance. I do not sell stocks, bonds, funds, annuity, no products. But I believe in this concept. I'm just a tax advisor. But I believe in this concept, and you should too. In fact, I have millions of dollars of life insurance myself. I have so much life insurance, that's why I can't eat at home at night. I'm a big believer in this. What would I have told this guy if I was able to consult with him with the 10 million? Has 10 million in an IRA? Take 5 million out now. What do I care? It's going in the garbage anyway. I can do better things with it now. The last thing on earth you want is for taxes and post-death expenses to be paid from an IRA. Remember, if most of your money is sitting in a retirement account that hasn't been taxed yet, the last thing you want is to leave your beneficiaries the mess of having to pay those taxes, and we're going to assume there's going to be taxes and post-death expenses from retirement money, because if you do that, you get into this cycle of taxation, this tax on tax that eats away at the account until it's gone. Better to have other money. See, life insurance money comes out income tax free, and if you're working with an advisor who really knows their stuff, they can make it estate tax free as well. We want tax free. So what would I have told this guy? Take out the $5 million. We can do better things with it now. Even if the income tax was 50%, that still leaves you $2.5 million to buy enough life insurance to replace this entire estate and then some, and have it come out all tax free. See, you have to look at the long-term big picture. Most people don't do that. When you talk about life insurance, the first thing people say, well, it costs too much. I'm telling you, what does it cost not to do it? Look at the score at the end of the game. You lose it all. Here's the way I do planning with people. I like to use a yellow legal pad like this. Using my football analogy we talked about earlier, the score at the end of the game, the reason I like the legal pad, because it kind of looks like a football grid. It has all the lines there, and the last line is the goal line. Not a good goal for estate planning, which is what we're talking about. It's death. You know, whenever I say that, I'm reminded of this attorney friend of mine who says, oh, I never like to use the word death when I talk to clients. I say, well, what do you call it? He says, I like to use the term when the will matures. I call it what it is. When you're dead, you're dead. And here's what I say to people. See, I don't care what happens in the middle of the game. You get beat up, you get tackled, maybe you pay some insurance premiums. I only care about the score at the end of the game, how much you keep. So I would say to you, if I could create a plan that after you and your spouse cross over into the great beyond, your family gets your entire net worth, everything you had or much more, would that be a good plan? See, with the life insurance, you're leveraging IRA money now. Yes, you pay tax now, but look at the score at the end of the game, what you get tax-free later. It's many times the amount you take out now, plus it's tax-free later. You're turning small amounts of money into maybe millions tax-free, and many people can do this. The key is the IRA is not sacred. You don't just sit there and look at it. You use it, you leverage it, or you lose it. The leverage. You don't have to start with a lot to end up with a lot. And guess what? Now that you know you've taken care of your family, more money for you now, more money you can spend in retirement because they're already taken care of. Tax-free. Here's a story called Pension Pickle about a woman who worked for the New York City school system. How long do you think you have to work for the New York City school system to accumulate $1 million in your retirement account? Anyway, she died. What did her husband get? Did he lose 70, 80% like most people? No. He lost everything. Nothing. He got zero. He lost $1 million. He got zero. Why? 50 years ago, when she started at the school system, she was single. Who did she name as her beneficiary? Her mother, her uncle, and her sister. Well, her mother and her uncle have since died, but not her sister, who got every cent. It's called Pension Pickle. Broke widower loses $1 million to in-law. And he complains here, she won't give me a cent. Some people are laughing at that. Look at the caption under this picture of the couple dancing. Bruce Friedman wasn't wife Ann's beneficiary because she didn't update her files when they wed. 50 years ago? This is not the exception. This is the rule. This is what's happening. but it's not going to happen to you. You know why? Because you're going to follow my general rules of life. Sort of like you don't cook bacon while you're naked. It's that important. My general rules of life. Get a copy of that beneficiary form and check it. Make sure you have primary beneficiaries, contingent beneficiaries. Work with your advisor to check this. This is the single most important document to you. It's the beneficiary form. But go one step further. It has to be updated as well. It has to be current. Even if you have it, make sure you have the right beneficiaries. Because things happen, what I call life events. You have a birth, a death, a marriage, a divorce, you had a new grandchild. These things have to be changed. You get one thing out of this program. Get this checked. Anybody can do this. These are not secrets. I'm not telling any secrets. These things are in the tax code. Anybody can use them. Most people don't. But if you do, you'll have the plan. Remember, the only people who get the government plan are the people who don't plan. I've given you a plan which gives you more money for you to enjoy now, more money for retirement, and more money for your family, and so much of it tax-free. You first have to take control of your money. And that's a big problem for a lot of people. What I'm talking about is people who are retired. Maybe you had money in a 401k and now you left your company, but you leave the money in the 401k. That's not taking control of your money. That's leaving your money in the old house. They're not going to watch it. You know, sometimes people come up to me at programs like this and they say, I have $850,000 in my 401k. It's all the money I'll ever have because I'm retiring. There won't be any more. So I better watch that money. And I say, yeah, you better watch that money. You have one chance to get this right. This is your life savings. It's the single biggest chunk of money you'll ever handle at one time for many of you. You have one chance to get this right and move it correctly. It's like an eggshell. It breaks, it's over. You may want to talk to an advisor at this point that has specialized knowledge in getting this money either to an IRA or looking at some other tax advantages. It's generally best to take control of your money. You don't have the investment choices in a 401k. You have the universe of investment options to work with in your own IRA. For example, one that I want to talk about is annuities. Now, as I said before, in case you missed it, I don't sell annuities, I don't sell stocks, bonds, funds, I'm just a tax advisor. But this is your retirement money, and it has to last as long as you do. See, today, most people are not worried about dying anymore. They're worried about living too long and running out of money. Do you know that last year, the greeting card company, Hallmark, sold 85,000 100-year-old birthday cards? Do you have enough money to live that long? You don't want to run out of money, because what will you do if that happens? Here's a piece I saw a few years ago in this Kiplinger's magazine. I call it the centerfold for seniors. It's not that kind of centerfold. It's the magic words that people want to hear. Income forever. Those are the magic words. Even after all of this, most people, I wouldn't say they're happy with the government plan. They just may not realize there's another option, and they get the government plan. I don't want that to happen to you. That's why we're going to make sure that you implement a plan. How am I going to do that? Well, I started doing seminars like this, estate planning seminars, years ago, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, to build my own practice. And I used to do seminars, and when I did the seminars with people just like you, interested in conserving their money, keeping it from the government, I felt I made such a compelling case that I believed that when I finished the seminar, everybody in that room would follow me back to my office to make an appointment that night. Do you think that happened? No. Never! And I couldn't understand it. I think this is pretty important. So I found out what's keeping people from creating a plan. Because who wouldn't want what we're talking about for you and your family? I found out that when it comes down to it, everybody's got an excuse. So we're going to get them all off the table right now. Number one excuse, if I do an estate plan, I will die. Well, you got me there. What am I going to say to that one? It's true. But what's also true, if you don't do an estate plan or you don't have an exit strategy, you will also die with a big fat mess and your family will hate you. I thought I had what I call a killer close. You know what I mean by a killer close? The last line of the program, to get them to take action. And I used to end every seminar like this: do it for your kids. Well, I found the more I brought up the kids, the less likely anybody was to do anything. And I didn't know what I was doing wrong. And this went on for years, until years later, an attorney friend of mine, I was talking to him about this, and I said, you know, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. He says, well, what do you say at the end of the seminar? And I proudly say, do it for your kids. And he said, never say that. I said, why? He said, because people hate their kids. And it hit me, the guy was right. Every time I brought up estate planning, it all came out. He forgot my birthday in 1962. It all comes out. All of a sudden, she has a memory. The Marquis de Legre, one of the famous wills of all time, had a provision in his will that said, to my son, I leave the pleasure of earning a living. For 20 years, he thought the pleasure was mine. So see, obviously you all agree with him, so I know how you think. So I'm going to give you the secret to getting this done. Never say do it for the kids. The secret, do it for the grandchildren. Look at you, you see? It's a mush word. You say grandchildren, where do I sign? Even my meanest client says, of course I want to do it for the grandchildren. I'm not an animal. If you think about it, why do the grandchildren and the grandparents get along so well? They have a common enemy. The grandchildren are the bonus that you get for not killing your kids. So I know how you think. I hear this a lot. I don't want to do estate planning because after I'm dead, the kids won't visit me anyway. Where? In the cemetery? How would you know? But if that's keeping you from doing planning, I've got something for you. You want to make sure you get visited? In the headstone, we install an ATM machine. Guaranteed 5-10 visits a day. The place will be mobbed. You know, when I was a kid, if I didn't do something right away, my mother had this saying, what are you waiting for, a special occasion? You ever hear that one? Well, I'm saying the same thing to you. What are you waiting for, a special occasion? You ever go to a funeral, see the dead guy? What do they say about him? That's right, he looks good. If you notice, he's always the best-looking guy in the place. Why? Because somebody finally went back to his closet, got out his good suit, because now it's a special occasion. You get it? That's too late. So how do you begin this? Well, if you look at the financial shows on TV or read some of the financial magazines or papers, they say, well, if you have some money, maybe start gifting. You know, you can make those gifts of $12,000 a year to kids and grandkids. That sounds great, but don't bother with that. You know why? Because I found in my experience, most people are not going to write the checks anyway. And do you think the grandkids will ever know you gave them $12,000? What the heck does that mean to them? Here's the way to start planning. And the clients of mine that have done this and got into it, it changed their lives. Don't give anybody any money. Give them your time. You worked for this money your whole life. It's okay to enjoy it. Enjoy it with the people who are going to get it anyway. They're going to get it anyway. Wouldn't you love to be there with them, to enjoy it with them? Take the kids on a cruise or go to Disney World, and when you go, take a video camera and a still camera. And the clients of mine that did this, they come back to the office with the grandkids. It's the greatest feeling. They say, oh, here's a picture of me and Mickey and Minnie and Grandma and Grandpa. Those pictures will outlive you by 100 years, and you feel great because you see what your life's work has created. You see the enjoyment. These kids are going to get the money anyway. Wouldn't you love to be there with them to see them enjoy it? Isn't it better to give with warm hands than cold hands? That's where it really begins, because you feel so good about yourself. You say, I want to open a college fund. I want to go on another trip. I want to enjoy my money. There's a lot to this. I know in my own situation, 5 years ago, my dad passed away. And I was the only one in the hospital with him when the doctor came in and said, you have 2 to 3 months to live. Well, the doctors were off by 2 to 3 months. He died 6 days later. But his first words upon hearing the news were, I've got no complaints. And you know why he said that? Because 5 years earlier, I had this talk with him. I told him to enjoy his money. He said, I always wanted to join a golf club. I said, Dad, join the golf club. He says, but that's only for rich people. I said, Dad, you're rich. And he joined the golf club. I tell you, it was one of the greatest things he ever did, the joy he got from it. Plus, me, my brother, and my sister, the grandkids are all in local towns. So the kids were there for everything. You know what goes on in these clubs? They have something on every holiday. If they don't have a holiday, they make one up. Clam bakes, you name it. We even started going there for Thanksgiving. No cooking, no cleaning, no fighting. The kids were all over the place. It was the greatest time of his life. One of the last things he said to me in that last week, he said, if I can just make it 2 more weeks, I get the 5-year discount on the club membership. He didn't make it. He didn't get the 5-year discount. But he also told me, make sure your mother keeps the club membership, which she does. And it happens to be right across the street from where my 2 kids go to high school. And on special days, she would take the kids out of school to have lunch at the club with Grandma. This is where planning begins. This is what makes you feel it. This is what makes you realize what you lived your whole life for. It's okay to enjoy your money. Remember, if you have a plan, you have more money for you now, more for retirement, and plenty more for your loved ones. And most of that can be tax-free, so you can enjoy your money. But there are just some people that can't let go, and I'm directing this to the husbands in the audience that can't seem to spend money and enjoy it. Here's advice, not from me, but from a greater source, Dear Abby. Dear Abby, my husband hates to spend money. I cut my own hair and make my own clothes and have to account for every nickel I spend. Meanwhile, he has a stock of savings bonds put away that would choke a cow. How do I get some money out of him before we are both called to our final judgment? He says he's saving for a rainy day. Signed, 40 years Hitched. Dear Hitched, tell him it's raining. I'm telling you the same thing. It's raining now. If not now, when? I don't want any of you to have the situation. I remember a beneficiary came back to me. His mother, both parents actually died, and they lost all the problems I talked to you about. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, now I know what to do the next time my parents die. That's too late. It's about picking a plan, taking action. Let's go back to where we started in the beginning. Remember I asked you how many of you would like to see your estate, your life savings consumed in this order? I said, first the nursing home, and none of you raised hands. Then I said, the Internal Revenue Service, still no takers. Then, of course, children, grandchildren, and charity. This is the order, I'm telling you this again, that more than 90% of the estates in this country are consumed in. Do you want to change the order? Yes. Do you want more money for you, more money for retirement, and more money for your loved ones? Then do you want it tax-free? Yes. Do you want the government's hands out of your pockets? Yes. Anybody can do this. Most people don't because they don't take action. 5 frogs on a log. 3 of them decide to jump. How many are left? You're looking at me like dogs looking at ceiling fans. What's the name of the dog in Lassie? No help here. 5 frogs on a log. 3 of them decide to jump. How many are left? 5 frogs on a log. 3 of them decide to jump. How many are left? 5. Why? They only decided to jump. Yeah, I'll go to another seminar next week. I probably won't get hit by a train tonight. When should you do this? 3 words. While you're breathing. 2 words. Right now. You can take advantage of what I'm talking about. Anybody can. Or you can choose the government plan. After viewing this program, if you still take no action, it doesn't mean you didn't make a decision. It means you decided on the government plan, which is what most people do. That's what the government hopes you do. I hope we changed your mind. We can create a plan that will take care of you now for retirement and for your family and turn most of this money, maybe all of it, to tax-free money forever. That's how you stay rich forever and ever. Good luck to everybody. Thank you very much.